I just can't stand not knowing. I just can't stand not knowing. She was like, honey, you think you're gonna know in here? That's when I really just had this moment of, okay, like maybe I can go do something big now.
What did you want to do over there?
So, I mean, I want to do ops. That was like the first time in my life where I was like, oh my, I don't have a plan B. Like, I don't know what I'm gonna do.
I can't believe they didn't pick you up. So you go to college. I know you had interest in joining the CIA.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was very interested in politics, foreign affairs. That was like my love growing up. I'd say the big thing that happened and before I went to college was my father got very sick. He was chronically ill. So around when I was 12 years old, he had to retire. And I think that's something where if you're a kid that grows up with a chronically ill parent, like you grow up really fast. Like you start. I've seen it happen with my friends now who, their parents are getting older in their 60s and their 70s, and it's sort of like the caregiver caretaker relationship, and then the provider relationship sort of flips, where like when you're in your mid 40s, you start taking care of elderly parents. But I had that when I was 12, right? It was he had a severe heart attack and then had a chronic condition that made it hard for him to get out of bed. So my mother was an absolute saint.
Man, at 12?
Yeah, which is why I also think kids are resilient. And like my mother, again, an absolute saint, she didn't try to keep it from me. She was like, your father's sick. Doctor thinks he's probably going to die. But this is suffering. And he's going to suffer through it, right? Like he's going to, again, he was such a saint of a man too, where like he refused to take pain pills. He refused to sort of succumb to what was happening. And he actually lived for a while. He lived until I was in college, but he died when I was in college. And I always think the thing that like kind of, if you've had to take care of a parent for a while, you're of course sad when they're gone. But like the other thing that happens is you have this moment of just relief. Like that was like the real emotion that I felt was like, wow, like, my mother had been taking care of him for 8 years. And like when it happened, I was like, okay, like this is the beginning of my life. Right? Like it's because when that's all you've known is, okay, like I have to take care of my family. That's when I really just had this moment of, okay, like maybe I can go do something big now. Like maybe I can go do the thing and not have to worry about family or have to think about anyone but myself. I can be super selfish about what I want. And a lot of my friends were thinking about, joining the agency. I actually had a really interesting thing happen where I worked all through college, and I started walking a lady's dog, like this older lady who lived in Georgetown. She was afraid to walk around the neighborhood at 10:30 at night. So every night at 10:30 at night, I would leave the library, go to her house, and walk her dog. And over time, I learned that she was the first female station chief at the CIA.
No kidding.
Yeah. And like, I'd go into her house and she had like, in some ways it looks like a room like yours, just like just mementos of a life well lived. Like she'd been everywhere. She'd been all over Asia, just had the most incredible stories. But she was like this very demure, quiet lady. You would never know. She's beautiful, just lovely, very well mannered, but a polyglot. Like she could speak many languages. But you would never suspect her. And I just like I think it was partially spending so much time with her and like looking at her life and just thinking like, wow, like this is really cool. But then also, like just I grew up during September 11th too, right? It changed everyone's mind about, okay, what are you going to do? And that's why I wanted to go to Washington and kind of work in foreign affairs in some capacity. And I just said, after my dad died, I'm like, I want to do that. Like, I can finally do that. And going back to sort of like, I hadn't ever failed at anything. I was one of these kids. I was sort of I don't want to say I was a trophy kid, but it's like, again, I just worked hard at everything I did. And it was always a view that like, if you work hard enough in life, you can get what you want, right? So I just assumed going into that recruitment, like, oh, I'm a shoo-in, right? Like I'm top grad out of Georgetown, like, I have all these great references. I have these mentors who've done it, right? Like I'll be fine. It's not to say I didn't take it seriously, I did, but I was not prepared for the response I got in 2009, which was, after a year and a half in, like, sorry. You just get a letter back from the Recruitment and Retention Center that says, we do not need your services. You can, apply 3 years from now. And I think that was like the first time in my life where I was like, oh my, I don't have a plan B. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do.
I can't believe they didn't pick you up. What did you want to do over there?
So, I wanted to do ops. Like I wanted to just, but because I was so young. Yeah. But the young, like the, 22, 23-year-olds, like they didn't put, like they sort of had a training program, right? Like it was like you do 2 or 3 years. It wasn't an analyst program, but they kind of put you in this sort of path, right? It's the kids who know how to do nothing, right? Like you knew how to do things when you were contracting, but the kids who are just out of college, they have sort of a training path for them, and then they figure out where they want to go. And it's funny, like
So you were in the training path?
yeah, so I had done like multiple interviews, yeah. So it was yeah, I mean they did, multiple rounds of interviews, and I look back on it, it's so funny. I'm like, I know exactly why they didn't pick me. I am not an easy person. I am a disagreeable person. It's like after 8-hour interviews where they're really trying to get to know you. There's times where I'm like, I know exactly what I said wrong. Like, you're supposed to answer the question of like, why are you wanting to do this, right? The right answer is you want to serve your country, which is the right answer, right? And I said it multiple times, but by like the fifth time they ask it in a different way, I said something that was probably the through line of my life, which is I just can't stand not knowing. I just can't stand not knowing. And of course, that's like the wrong answer. And to the lady who was interviewing me's credit, she was like, honey, you think you're going to know in here? Like, you think you're going to come in here and you're going to know anything? Like, and again, it's like, okay, you 23-year-old, like little girl who's never been told, like, get out of here. What a joke.
Damn.
So it's on me. Like and they're right? Like I am not I even today, it's like my colleagues are like, it's amazing you can actually work at a company, right? You are such a disagreeable, and they mean that lovingly, but like I am not someone who doesn't say what I think. I'm not someone who takes orders very well. So I think they probably looked at my character after, it's like spikes in certain areas, like probably very good at getting information and meeting people, talking to people, doing the things that you need to do, but also probably not going to be able to deal with the culture.
Yeah. Probably for the best.
Probably for the best. I mean, things always work out
in
the
the
way
short amount of time I've known you. A lot of things over there would have driven you insane.
I would. I think she did me a favor, but it was definitely like coming out of college, 24, no idea what I was going to do with my life, and it was sort of serendipitous how I ended up at the Washington Post, because I had taken a job and I had friends, who were already sort of in, and they're like, you got to be in DC, just take a job, but like take any job you can get. And so I got this kind of ridiculous, like the copy editor job, but it was at a newspaper called The Express. So if you've ever been in DC and you've gone on the Metro, it's the free Metro paper that the Washington Post hands out. And everyone, who's ever been on the Metro remembers this paper, loves this paper. It's sort of this snarky, free newsletter thing. And they needed someone who was just good at writing, but unbylined, so you don't have a record that you worked there or whatever. And I was like, that sounds great. Like I can just write during the day for, 3 to 6 hours or whatever, and then do what I need to do for my real career, my real job, right? I was so convinced that was going to happen. And so when I got the letter, I was like, wait, right now I'm just a copywriter at, the lowest person on the totem pole inside the Washington Post, without a byline, without anything. I'm not even a real reporter. Like, what am I going to do? Like, what am I going to do? Like, I should probably figure out, like, if I can actually make this a real career. So I sort of, I sort of convinced myself that intelligence isn't that different than reporting, right? You have sources. You have to have a network of nodes and people who are telling you information about whatever you're covering. You have to be really good at asking questions. You have to be good at listening, reading people, knowing what's true, knowing what's false, making decisions very quickly. And part of me was like, okay, if I can't do that as a, in the agency, like I could do that at the Washington Post. I just have to convince them to let me do it. And turned out to be the most opportune time to be in media for a young person.
Really?
Because I was cheap. I was making $30,000 a year. And I would write as much as they wanted me to. I'm like, I have no obligations, right? I can come in on Sundays. I can do whatever story you want me to do. So I found an editor inside the Washington Post, and she's like, you can write as many stories as you want. We just need people to fill the actual physical paper, because they were slashing the people who were, well-known reporters left and right, because the business was going under. And
why was it going under?
Oh, I mean, just the business of media with the internet. Mm-hmm. I mean, they had everyone thinks that the media really started declining like maybe 2014, 2015, 2016, but the first wave of real layoffs were like 2008, 2009, where there was just an understanding that Google, and then Facebook, but Google really was just eating the lunch of these companies. The business models of every major newspaper up until this point, of regional newspapers, were classifieds, subscriptions, and then syndication. So syndication, sending out the story, people paying to have to reprint it. That was Google. Google completely took that, right? Like, so all of the stories would go on the internet for free. No one was paying for the digital copy. The Wall Street Journal figured it out, but none of the other papers did. So they were just hemorrhaging subscribers. And then the advertising, it was like, well, if people are advertising online, like, why am I going to advertise, my store in your newspaper? No one's reading the physical paper anymore. But they still had it, and they still had, subscribers that were reading it. So it was actually a great time to go in and just be like, okay, like I'll work for basically, very little, and I'll work a lot, and I'll fill your paper. And so after about a year of that, they brought me on full time as a staff writer. Because I was breaking stories and things as someone who really wasn't affiliated with the paper. But it was not what I wanted to do. It was not like my dream was to be, a reporter. But there was something about just being in that place at the right time where I was like, okay, I can make something out of this major setback, or this thing that I thought was a major setback. And I can learn a new trade even if it's not, the thing that I thought I would be doing.
So did you develop your own sources and all of that network?
Yeah.
How'd you do it? Where'd you start? No matter where you're watching Shawn Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.